So living in Florida, you have endless opportunities to enjoy the outdoors. And for those fortunate enough to live on the water, maximizing outdoor entertainment area may be a big deal to you. Today we're going to dive into the subject of custom dock design. I'm talking to Donald Ruskamp from Top Dog Marine, who are specialists in custom dock design. Thank you so much for talking to me today, Donald. Okay, so take us through the process. If I wanted to build a beautiful dock like this one, what all is involved as far as permitting?
So permitting depends on where you are. Different areas require different permitting. Okay. On the river, on the intercoastal, on canals, you have a different permitting process. All of it falls under the jurisdiction of the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay. And most of it falls under the jurisdiction of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. So you would start there, and depending on where you are, there are different setback requirements, different square footage requirements, and different things that you can and cannot do. Okay. So we would start there, figure out where you are. One of the big things is when you're building a dock is most people are going to use it to store their boat in a boathouse. Mm-hmm. So we want to get to a point where we have enough water to get the boat in and out. Yeah, absolutely. During those tides. Yes. So there's an allowance for that, where they allow you to go to 4 feet at mean low water, so that generally said you can get your boat in and out at all times. All right, important. So we start there, and then we figure out, you know, what length of the dock you're going to need, what size of the slip, whether it's going to be just a wet slip or a slip with a lift. Is it going to be open, have a roof over top of it? So we find out what the customer is looking for with those aspects, and then we start building from there. Okay. There are limitations on what they call a terminal platform. This one here is pretty big. It's not on the river, so there's a different requirement here. But a typical terminal platform on the river is allowed 200 square feet. Okay. So 10 by 20 is the typical size that we use for that. Okay. And then sometimes it'll be covered, sometimes it will not, you know. Just depending on what the customer wants, the lifestyle they're looking for. Correct. Okay. Correct. Right. I would think in Florida, having it covered is important to, number one, protect your boat, protect your equipment that you have on your dock. Tell me about some of the amenities that people choose. Like if I wanted to create the ultimate entertainment area, what are some of the things that people actually place on their docks? Well, there again, it comes into what you're allowed to put on a dock. Good, okay. So when it comes to things like summer kitchens or things like that, none of that stuff is allowed on the dock, over the water. Oh, really? All that stuff would have to be at the beginning of the dock. Unless you're in some of the private canals or things like that, there are different rules for there, and you know, you can do some different things in there. Okay. But as for a dock on the river or like here on the intercoastal, unless it was grandfathered in and it's been there for a long time, then new stuff you're not allowed to permit and put any type of sinks or refrigerators or anything like that over the water. Okay, all right. That's good to know. So you would be the one to tell the customer, you can do this, you can't do that. So the restrictions, you're clued in on what's allowed and what isn't. For the most part, yeah. I mean, sometimes there are questions whether it's allowed or not allowed. Mm-hmm. In those cases, we'll just turn in and see if we can get it approved. Okay. You know, we'll say approval. Right. We'll turn in and say, well, this is what we want. Are we allowed to do it? If not, what can we do? Can we change the size of this or move this and get to
A happy medium.
Exactly.
Okay.
Get as close to what they're looking for as possible.
Okay, all right. So this one actually has a second story to it. What are the intricacies of doing that? Because I don't see that very often. It's beautiful, but how much more complicated would that be?
It's not really too much more complicated, and there again comes to the thing where this is not allowed in most places around. You know, there are a lot of them around. If you ride down through the rivers and the stuff, you see upper deck all over the place. But as for permitting, most of the time they're not going to approve it.
Okay, all right.
If you had it, then you can redo it and it's grandfathered in. But as for new permitting, they usually don't approve an upper deck area.
Okay, all right. So once you come to the home and you're going to build a dock, do you take into consideration the architecture and the design of the home in order to try and match it up? Any kind of features that you would match up on when you build a dock like this?
A lot of times, you know, I ask those questions, you know, so it's all going to be up to the homeowner. Some are concerned about that, some are not. And so I will, and it depends on how far away from the house the dock is.
Right.
If you're talking on the river where it's a 500-foot dock, the design looking out there is, you know, is not as much as if it's right up close to the house.
Okay.
You know, so then, you know, I will look and ask them, you know, what options do they want? The roof, do we want to match the style of the roof to the house? Or get it close to a color? There are a lot of different options that we can do to try to match up and get color coordinated and things like that.
All right, next, let's talk about the actual material that you use. Because I know I've seen a lot of wooden docks. They don't last too long, especially with the heat and the rain in Florida. But this type of material that you've used right here, explain this, because I think this is more of a longer life material. Yeah,
definitely. So this one here, I guess you can see in the back. So these are actually, for easier terms, plastic piling.
Okay.
They have a grid inside of them to give them strength, but the entire pole is plastic. The entire deck is plastic. The framing underneath is wood, and we seal the top of that with what's called a joist tape. And so we try to get the wood to last as long as some of the other material, because these plastic materials, I mean, they're going to last 40, 50 years plus.
Okay. Oh, great. Yeah, that's a long life.
Yeah, and so compared to in this area in Intercoastal, a wood piling, you're maybe going to get 10, 15 years, possibly 20 years before you have to start doing some repairs. This stuff here, you know, they'll never have to do anything.
Never mess with it again.
Right.
Yeah, wow, that's great. Okay, let's talk about time frame. From the time that we meet and talk about our initial design to the time when you can say your dock is done, what would you say average time frame?
So that's been a crazy roller coaster for the last few years with COVID.
Yeah.
Storms play a big role in that. But right now, you're looking at probably 3 to 4 months to get a permit.
Okay.
So once we finalize the design, the size, the location, then we'll get that drawn up, submit that in. It'll go in for DEP approval.
Okay.
Once we receive DEP approval, which is generally 2 to 3 months, maybe a little longer sometimes.
Okay.
Then we have to submit it to Army Corps of Engineers for approval. That could take another 2 to 6 months, depending on what it is.
Okay, so it really varies.
It varies a lot, depending on what it is. If they look at it and they say everything looks good and it's easy, or if they want to come out and do a site visit and take measurements and confirm things, you know, all that stuff. If they want changes, then it all has to be in writing and resubmitted, and
Yeah.
So it can drag on. I don't personally do the permitting myself. I have someone else that I hire to do that.
Okay.
That's their expertise. They get it done a lot faster than I do.
Okay.
It's a premium for that, but most time
it's worth it.
It's worth just getting it done and move on.
Okay.
So once we get the permit, typically then it depends on schedule.
Okay.
And in the busy season, it could be 6 to 8 months before we could get started, even after the permit.
Yeah.
But on average, I would say 2 to 3 months.
Okay.
More so.
Okay.
Sometimes sooner. And it depends on where one of our barges is located to where the work is. For instance, we're in the intercoastal now, and if we're working over here and I have a permit come in for a job in Green Cove Springs or Orange Park, it's about a 10-hour trip around there to go and get to that side.
Yeah.
So we like to try to schedule things where we work our way around and work back and forth, so we're not picking up here, moving 10 hours over to and then back over here.
For efficiency.
And it's an ordeal to move all that equipment all the way down the river and back.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Good. And then how about average costs? I don't know if you can, give a linear per linear foot, or does it really just depend job to job? There's no average.
So there's not really an average for the whole thing, because you have a lot of variables. Your piling size, which is the diameter of the piling, are different. The lengths of the piling, on typical dock piling, probably the shortest thing we ever used is probably about 14 feet up to 35 feet for a dock pole.
That varies.
And so that cost can vary a lot. And then the piling for the boathouse roof can be 30 feet or 55 feet long. So those variables change the square foot price a lot.
Absolutely.
As for the framing and the decking, that's a standard, pretty standard most of the time. To go with like a typical wood framing, and then I know like the upcharge to go up to a plastic decking can increase the cost probably $7 to $12 or $14 a square foot, depending on the product that's used.
All right.
But on average, the stuff that we use is usually about a $10 upcharge on that.
Okay, good. Right.
So prices vary a lot. It's really hard to give,
Yeah, so everything is custom. I mean, it goes from your location, the size you want, the amenities you want, what's allowed and what isn't, and really what you're looking for. So it'll be a custom job, a custom quote per person.
Correct.
Per home.
Correct. Yeah, because even the boat lifts, we ask what the boat that's going on there, the year, the make, the model. So I have them build the lift to match that boat.
Capacity,
and then we want to make sure when you pull the boat in there, it's sitting in the right location. It's not too far forward, it's not too far back where your engines are sticking out of the back of the boathouse and not covered.
Sure.
So you have, a lot of that. Now, obviously, if you build it for one boat and you put another boat in there, that can change. But if it's a similar boat, similar style, then it usually fits in there with no problem.
Okay, all right, very good. Well, this has been very, very informative. Thank you so much for taking your time to give us all this information. I really appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, very nice.
My name is Amanda Bolwell with HomesAnyTime, and if you are looking to buy or sell a home, I would appreciate it if you would reach out to me. I would definitely love to help you. As always, like and subscribe, and I thank you for watching.